going to start off with just kind of a basic PowerPoint going over how to get into DTF printing. We don't want to assume that everybody who's watching already has equipment. So we'll go over how to kind of get started there, and then how you can be selling DTF transfers, essentially launching a DTF transfer business using your DecoNetwork account. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. So why does everybody want to get into DTF printing? Well, many reasons. The quality of the prints and the versatility that the process offers. But the act of selling transfers is extremely profitable. And if you already have the equipment to print the transfers for yourself to then apply onto garments, you are automatically set up to sell DTF transfers, especially if you have a DecoNetwork account, and we can quickly put together a website dedicated to selling those DTF transfers. So what's really attractive, though, about DTF transfers, again, is the profitability. The average price that I see transfers sold for is around $350 a square foot. Now, some of the big guys, like if you go to ninjatransfers.com, they're definitely more than $350. I personally am kind of racing to the bottom. I sell it at $275 a square foot because it's still very profitable. I mean, we have around 35 cents in ink and a square foot of a print. We have around 50 cents in film cost. And if I sell a square foot print for $350 and I have 85 cents in the cost of it, I'm essentially making around $265 a square foot, which is your average size full chest print. The printer that you guys saw when we started this webinar, again, Jay installed it. It's running around 100 square feet an hour. So if I'm making $265 a square foot and I can print around 100 square feet an hour, I'm profiting around $265 an hour. I have DTG equipment in my shop. I have screen printing, embroidery, sublimation. Printing a DTF transfer that I just throw in a box or a roll and ship it to the customer is really more profitable per hour than any other decoration process, at least in my shop. So it's extremely profitable. DTF, again, it's so new. We're in the infancy stage. The worst thing about DTF is it's such a new process and the kinks are still being worked out. Now, again, I think we've made a lot of progress of the past few years. I mean, you would agree, right, Jay? I mean, very different
yes.
than
it's 6 months, things change. So
it's the equipment, it's the consumables, it's the software that are all evolving. Again, we're in the infancy stages, and the equipment itself, again, is what I see evolving at every show. I mean, I went to the Long Beach show in January. M&R had a printer, and now they have a totally different setup, and they no longer sell the printer that they debuted in January. Things just evolve so quickly.
Most companies, Zach, are taking it serious now. Before they thought it was a fad, they know it's not going anywhere now.
No, it's not. Again, it's just been a game changer. And again, DTF, it has these multiple revenue routes now. You can buy one of these equipment setups and you're immediately complementing what other decoration processes you offer, in addition to having this new door that's been open to be selling transfers to the shops that haven't taken the dive and bought their own equipment. And that's a good place to start. If you haven't bought your own, if you don't have your own DTF equipment yet, first outsource your transfer orders until you can justify bringing the decoration process in-house. And this is just good logic for any decoration process. You don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on equipment really until you have the demand built up. And transfers have made it easier than any other process. You know, if I outsourced embroidery, I have to physically ship the goods to the embroiderer, they do the decoration and so forth. When it comes to a DTF transfer, I can outsource the transfer to be printed, sent to me, and then which is very friendly from a shipping standpoint. And when it comes to a transfer, it gives us the flexibility to decide what you're printing on, where you're printing it, and when you are printing it. It's just so much flexibility. And what, Jay, the transfers, if you keep them in a good humidity environment, I mean, after they've been printed, you kind of want to keep them in a low humidity. I have ones, Jay, that you printed 3 years ago for me that peel without any problems because I make sure the humidity doesn't really get to them. That's a fair statement, right? They'll last for years.
It's all about environment with the equipment and storing the transfers. So yes, a good quality transfer will last forever.
And very different environments, which again, we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But printers, Jay, really, when I go to a show, I see 3 different size printers. I see the desktop printers, which typically print 12, 13-inch film. Then you see primarily the 24-inch wide printers and dusters. And then there's a few suppliers that are selling the 48-inch machines. But what, Jay, would you say 80% of what you see is a 24-inch? Is that fair?
Yeah, 80% of that. You know, we're seeing 5 heads, 8 heads. I think there was something with 18 heads wow. At the last show. So yeah, nightmare to align, to keep up.
And again, Jay and I have talked about this quite a bit. If a 48-inch wide printer and duster cost twice as much or a little bit less than twice as much, I would rather have 2 24-inch printers so I can be running 2 separate jobs at the exact same time.
We like the redundancy. Equipment is going to fail. It's going to give you problems. So we like to have a backup. And with one big printer, you just don't have a backup. You're stuck.
Well, and I mean, not only that, but just a lot of logistics when it goes into these machines, just getting them through a door. You know, 48-inch wide, that starts to become more difficult at times. But the price of the equipment, you have seen that go down over the past handful of years as well.
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, like you can see on the screen right now, most of the printers I see at a show, not every printer, they average 12 to 25,000. Now, obviously, again, there's maybe some cheaper setups with a desktop unit, and then obviously it gets more expensive for a 48-inch wide printer. But I think it's fair, right, Jay? 12 to 25K is what you typically see for most machines.
It is, and the higher price point machines will usually come with on-site service, on-site training, installation, and that's kind of important. It really is. There's a lot of places you can buy printers from really cheap. China for one, and there's companies here in the United States, they'll just ship you a printer and give you remote support. And it just doesn't work. You know, there's nothing like the face-to-face hands-on training, and, you know, it just makes sense to spend a little extra money. People think that they're saving money, but if it takes them 3 to 4 days, 3 to 4 weeks, you know, every day that they don't have that printer up and running, it's costing them money. So there's a lot of value in buying from a U.S. company, paying a little bit more, and making sure you've got the support when you pick up the phone and you have an issue, it can be at least addressed immediately.
Well, and that's what you did for me. I mean, the printer and dryer were shipped to me. I got it in my room. I got the exhaust set up. I got the electricity all taken care of. You showed up within 4-6 hours. We were printing transfers and throwing them in a box and actually shipping them to a customer.
We were making money, right? That's the key to it.
And it also the peace of mind that you're actually doing it correctly, because somebody like yourself, Jay, I mean, you've installed dozens of these machines. You know how to make it sing. Um, you do what you're good at. And yeah, that's why, again, I highly suggest everybody check out DTF Experts. That's Jay's consulting business for DTF. Also, where you can purchase equipment, supplies, um, and really anything else. Um, Jay is where I go through DTF Experts to get all of my film, ink, powder. Uh, that's evolved greatly as well, hasn't it, Jay?
It has. We do some work for a company called American Print and Supply. We're a dealer for them now. The quality of the consumables is great. I get to test all that stuff, so and recommend it. So it's not just something we sell. We use these products every day. So
And buying the best printer and then putting in the cheapest consumables will not deliver you great results. I mean, think about buying a Ferrari and putting in the cheapest gas you can possibly purchase. You think that machine is going to perform the way it can? No way. Um,
there's so many resellers out there, Zach. Now it's unbelievable. Every day we get 10 to 12 messages. Hey, we sell the best this and the cheapest this, and those two words don't go together, best and cheap. They really don't.
no.
We want something that's going to run right, that's going to be reliable, and give us the results continuously that we need to continue to make money. Because every day that machine's down because of a consumable costs most of us thousands of dollars.
Yep. And I believe, Jay, with installation, my printer that we showed at the very beginning of the webinar, it's right around 20 with installation, Jay. I'm not quoting
Yeah,
you,
it's
but
it's,
right,
it's about yeah, that's about right.
because that's what I'm seeing a lot of when I go to a trade show. Most of the printers are hovering again around that 23 to 35 with installation is what I'm seeing. And walking, I mean, we had a booth directly across DecoNetworks last time, and they were selling it for like 30, and this thing was performing at a snail's pace. So just like any piece of equipment, better or more expensive doesn't automatically mean better. What I always highly suggest is for any decision in business, talk to others in the industry and get feedback from their experience. Um, because obviously, I mean, a sales rep will tell you what you want to hear and talk you into buying something that you may not actually need at that moment, or you're overpaying for something because more hands are touching and need a piece of the pie. Um,
Correct.
and most of this equipment is made in China. I mean, what, 9 out of 10 printer? I mean, I almost think every printer is made in China at the moment when it comes to DTF, and then they'll swap some components maybe out of it. But the majority I'm seeing are made in China. You would agree with that, right, Jay?
I would. Mamaki is a Japanese product, from what I
Yeah.
believe. It's a really good product. It's kind of slow, but it's kind of touching on points in DTF where you don't have to babysit it as much. So
Yeah.
you can walk off and do other things, kind of like our UV printer. You know, our UV printer has a take-up reel on it. You load all your jobs in it. You hit print. You know what? You can go do something else. Go do
And
something else. Make, you know,
sorry, Jay, but if you think about DTF, what it really is, it's a wide format printer that is using practically DTG ink because it's not curing right away. It's
yep,
then going into a conveyor dryer that's practically a screen print dryer, but it's got a shaker in it as well. So
yep,
it makes a lot of sense why Mamaki would be able to put out a good piece of equipment, because it is a wide format printer in a sense. I mean, that
it
logic
is.
makes sense, right?
It
Um,
is.
and then Brother, we've seen them kind of come out with their own DTF printer. It really just looks like a backwards DTG machine when I see it. Um,
Well, well, you know, when I first seen that, Zach, I figured, well, this is a solution for all the people that bought these expensive GTXs and they're just sitting there now because they're ordering transfers. But come to find out, you can't just buy that unit to put on the back of it in the US market. Now the European market, they're doing something different. They're allowing them a retro unit. So here in the US, they're making people buy new equipment.
And
It's
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 not cheap.
slow. Yeah, it's not a good solution. It's really not. I would recommend someone buying transfers before they even think about doing the brother
And
solution.
and Jay, I mean, you brought up a great point there. Most DTG printers now print their own. They use that printer to print DTF transfers, but only for themselves internally. I think you're kind of
It's fine.
crazy to
It's
be.
fine. It's fine on a small scale. It
Yeah,
is. I know a couple big screen print shops that have Epsons and they do it, but it's not something that you can do on a production level or want to.
no, no. I mean, it again. Every decoration process has a time and place. DTG is very limited in what it can go on. It's a water-based ink meant to go on 100% cotton. With DTF, we're still playing with water-based ink, but we're drying it first, and it allows us to go on a much larger range of items, and
The
is why I
adhesive.
see more DTG shops getting into it,
Yep.
just
Yep.
because they want to offer more products, and it gives them the flexibility to print on demand. I mean, that's what DTF allows us to do. It allows us to print a one-off, or it allows us to print bulk because it's a CMYK digital method. Um, some of the other manufacturers, CobraFlex has become fairly popular. I was just at the Printing United show. They probably had 4 or 5 different types of printers, one of which
It's
was the printer and dryer all together. I mean, it's interesting what they're always doing.
well, they had the 18 head and they had the stealth, which was pretty cool. And a lot of people don't like Cobra Flex. They jumped into the market with something that just wasn't tested. And there's a lot of other people doing that, jumping in there and just not testing it, and they have their little followers, that are recommending them, and it's turning into a nightmare. But Cobra Flex, I like the new equipment, I really do, and he's done some things that we've talked about as a company, but never implemented them because we just didn't have the time or the resources. But he's went ahead and did this stuff, so it's pretty neat. He's no matter what, we learn by our mistakes. How about that? And he's made a lot of mistakes in the industry, but I think he's going in the right direction now. My
Yeah.
opinion.
A couple years ago, CobraFlex came out with a powderless printer. I don't know if they came back with it, but I remember everybody was at the Long Beach show and was like, look at this powderless printer.
It
And
was
then
great.
shortly after that, it did nobody wanted that thing because you're kind of playing with
Well,
fire.
well, the problem is you just can't see the glue printing, so you have no idea if it's printing. And by the time the process is done, you're going to press something. Heck, you didn't know that the glue print stopped printing, and you can't press it to anything. It doesn't work.
Yep, that's no good. And even if you could get it to be pressed, I mean, just because it transfers doesn't mean that it's going to last when it's washed, which
Yes,
is
that's
obviously
important.
very concerning. And that's why we use adhesive powder and cure the ink so that it actually does hold up. And the durability from DTF, when it's properly cured and printed and everything else, it performs great. The other big one that I keep seeing at the shows is M&R just came out with their Quattro, and that's an impressive machine as well, Jay. I mean, from
Very,
what I
very
can
nice.
tell, it has like its own carbon filter practically built in because they don't have an exhaust unit hooked up to it, which again, um, maybe that's the future of DTF. You're seeing these industry leaders. I mean, yeah, Mamaki's been around for decades. Same with Brother, M&R, and they're kind of pushing the entire industry to make these improvements as well. Is the way I see it.
Well, last year M&R wouldn't even talk about a DTF machine. Now, I thought when I first seen it was going to be the benchmark. It has some really nice things, and M&R goes into some big shops, and they have certain things that the shops need, like UL listing and ease of installation, and they have all that. I like a lot of the stuff. It's changing, it's evolving. We just said that it's evolving as we're speaking now, Zach. So I think it's a little overpriced in my opinion. But you have diehard M&R shops out there that aren't going to buy anything but M&R.
Oh yeah.
So
Now, I
they'll
don't
do
think
very
I've
well
been,
with it.
I don't think I've been in a shop and I've seen M&R screen printing equipment and then any other brand. Those who are
Right.
M&R, they're blue and they're going to
They
stay
are.
blue.
That's right.
Um,
They're blue. Exactly.
and just so everybody realizes, M&R calls it the Quattro because screen printing has been their bread and butter for decades. Then they came out with their digital squeegee, which is essentially screen printing and DTG essentially all in one. They have their own DTG machines now. And then because this is kind of the fourth type of machine that they're selling, that's why they named it the M&R Quattro. Pretty cool machine. But you're going to be paying a bit more. And who knows if we go to Long Beach in a couple months and all of a sudden they've got a new one. Uh,
Well, it's funny you said that because the first one I seen the changes, made a mental note of it, and then this last show there were several machines. They had several machines out there, but if you looked at them really good, they were different. There was things that they changed. Boxes on the other side. This was different ink combinations. So they're doing what everybody wants to do and improve it as we go. So it's it makes sense. They find a problem and they fix it.
Yep, but again, we just all have to remember we're in the infancy stages of DTF. What really has made DTF evolve at a quick pace is DTG. 15, 20 years ago, DTG came out and we those who got into it, I mean, I think it was 12 years ago I purchased my DTG machine. It was $60,000 with my pre-treat setup.
It was the
I now
greatest
can get
thing
a
since
DTF
sliced
printer
bread.
for 20K. It's ridiculously better purchase compared to before. So yeah. Um, so you can buy equipment, but you really need to get somebody like Jay who knows what they're doing to help you install it, get it up and running within hours instead of again you pulling your hair out over weeks. I've heard in a given week I'll talk to 20 different shops uh, through my DecoNetwork, Deco Pro consulting and other services, and everybody who went on to Alibaba, bought the machine, and thought they were going to just figure it out on their own, just completely regrets it. You're much better off buying it from a reputable company who also does the installation. Because again, it can be a nightmare. There's a lot of variables to get right. But Jay, once you set it up for me, I barely have contacted you because I was set up correctly from the get-go. I didn't dig myself a grave and then have to have you pull me out of it. Um,
A,
so
a good example, Zach. I'm sitting here with a business owner, and she purchased 15, 18 months ago her printer and duster from a reputable business, but they did not offer on site. Took her many, many weeks of pulling hair out and just having to learn it herself because they didn't have the support. They just couldn't support it. They were selling boxes is what they were doing. Boxes of printers, and they were just pushing them out as quick as they can. We come, printer was actually still in the crate, the UV printer. Within 3 or 4 hours, we had it on the stand. We had it printing. It wasn't perfect. We got it dialed in the day after, and she can come in and make money with this machine immediately. Not like her DTF machine that she, actually probably aged 10 years from having to fool with it and figure it out herself.
well, and again, that is a service that you provide at DTF Experts. They don't have to necessarily buy a machine from you, Jay, right? I mean,
They
if
don't.
somebody really
Correct.
needs help, I mean, you'll help them. Um,
I do shy away from equipment that I don't know as well. And if someone will contact me and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'll make my suggestions. Whether you want me to help you or not, as far as installing it. I can still give you some good advice on who to buy from, what to buy, and we just want to we want to make sure that we know how the equipment works before we say, yeah, we're going to come to you.
Yep. And like you kind of said, Jay, a lot of these printers are kind of the same machine, and then whoever's selling it has put a different shell around it and slapped their
Yes.
logo on the side of it. Probably now with the UV DTF transfer.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, so from a production standpoint, though, Jay, buy the best consumables possible. I can't overstate how cheap the consumables are compared to, for example, DTG. I mean, when I first got into DTG, not only did the equipment cost me so much more, the consumables, I mean, I would average $3 to $5 in a full chest print sometimes. You're laying down so much ink because it's saturating into the product versus DTF, you're laying down a minimal amount of ink. It's so cheap. Buy the best consumables. It's just kind of common sense. And those consumables revolve around your ink, powder, and film. And I've even seen all three of those consumables get cheaper and better at the exact same time, which again, it's awesome. It's becoming a perfect time to get into DTF because we've gotten over that initial hump. The way I like to look at it, years ago, my dad told me, never buy the first model of a vehicle. They got to work the kinks out. And I feel like the past 4 years, so many kinks have been worked out that it's a great time for somebody to make that purchase and be confident that they're not taking their business backwards. I mean, is that a fair statement, Jay? Uh-oh, where'd you go, Jay? All right, don't know where Jay is. We're going to keep going. If you're going to get into selling transfers, even if you have the best equipment, the best consumables, and you had a great person like Jay come and set you up, if you're going to sell transfers, you need a backup production solution. I can't sell transfers throughout the week, and then all of a sudden my customer comes to me and I'm like, well, my printer's down. I can't print. I'm giving my competition an opportunity to take that business away from me. So if you're going to be selling transfers, you really need that backup production solution. Somebody like Jay's business, not only does he sell the consumables and the equipment, he also has a print insurance program. So if you buy equipment from him, he'll give you really good pricing if your machine ever goes down or has a problem, which is just incredible peace of mind.
Can you hear me, Zach?
Yep, I got you back, Jay.
Okay.
Just talking about your print insurance and how you give somebody peace of mind, because equipment often will break. I mean, it just will. So having that backup production, very important. Ventilation, just so everybody knows, ventilation can be a little tricky initially. You're either going to vent out the building because the exhaust fumes from the dryer and the ink curing is something you don't really want to breathe in. So you got to get it up and out of the building, or be purchasing some type of air filtration system to clean that air. And then
as you know well, though, also the way you direct it and the way you run it has a lot to do with it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Heat wants to rise. I didn't want to let it do that, and I made my own mistakes. The other thing, Jay, controllable temperature and humidity. I mean, these machines don't want to run in 90-degree temperature. Your employee doesn't want to be in 90-degree temperature. Humidity, though, it's a water-based ink. And this is stuff that we learned from DTG. If you took a DTG machine and you put it in a 10% humidity environment, the ink is going to dry in the print heads, and you're going to be spending $1,000 on a print head very quickly. So same thing with DTF. You really want the humidity to be high. What I mean by that, Jay, 50 to 60%, the printer will sing You won't be doing as many head cleanings. You won't have the clogging in the heads. Um,
Plus
extremely
50, plus 50.
plus 50%. And that's not always easy. So what I often hear from shops, and this is what I think you recommend, Jay, don't put it in a big warehouse area. You really need a dedicated space for it, where you can control the temperature and humidity in the room very easily. Otherwise, you're going to be, swimming upstream the whole time trying to get a machine to work. Um,
I
now,
like to say, Zach, environment is the most crucial thing when it comes to these printers, and the most people take it for granted. You know,
oh yeah.
they really do.
Um, Now, how we sell transfers. Let's start getting into like how to. We've gone through the boring stuff of how to get set up, how to kind of make a decision, buying equipment, installation, consumables. How do we sell them? Well, there's really three primary kind of methods per square inch. I really would see this very commonly with stalls. They would look at every square inch that you make the design bigger, they're increasing the price. What I see more of my clients doing, that I consult for, they offer different print sizes. So maybe you offer small print sizes and then we'll gang it up for the customer, or they're offering sheets. Every company who sells DTF transfer sells sheets, and pretty much every single one of them, Jay, sell the same size. It's going to be a foot or two or three or four by 22 inches. Um, it's 24-inch wide film, and you really have a maximum width of 22 inches, and it's a continuous roll. So, I mean, you can go longer than 60 inches. It just can become a challenge as far as designing that sheet because it's a massive, massive file. Um, and we never really need a print bigger than 60. I mean, we really don't need to be printing bigger than 24 inches, but
It
everybody wants bigger
it kind of
sheets.
baffles me why they want to spend all that time to gang it into 120 inches or whatever when they can just buy multiple 60-inch sheets, or
It,
multiple 24-inch sheets. So
it is
it,
baffling.
it's I think it's Facebook driven. They this has kind of created what market the way what the how the market is perceived. Through Facebook. We want gang sheets. Everybody. I mean, that's kind of like a industry word now. Gang sheet.
Well, it's more work for your printer or for
It,
your when you're in Photoshop to actually put together that giant gang sheet. Then you're trying to upload it onto a website to place an order. Again, it's massive, and then you're trying to send it to the printer. Again, massive. You don't
well,
need to be bigger than 60 ever.
not only that, but if we have a carriage strike or we have some ink dropping out, you know what happens? I have to print that whole 120 inch sheet over again. I don't want to do that. I
No.
would rather do it in shorter increments and do multiple of them. That way, if I have a problem, it's easier to fix. I'd rather reprint a 60-inch sheet than a 120-inch sheet, for
Yeah.
one image or two images.
That is one thing that I cannot get some people to just agree with. Bigger is better. No,
Yeah,
it's not. Not always.
not always.
So who do we sell transfers to? If you're starting decoration shops. I mean, really, that's the bread and butter. It's the other shops who haven't taken the dive yet, um, and bought their own equipment. The Cricut moms. Oh my gosh, they're always expanding and they're stopping to use their Cricuts. I mean, who wants to cut one color vinyl that costs more a per square foot than being able to print something that could be full color? Um, I mean, it's just common
You-
sense. So they're using their heat presses and they're just outsourcing the transfers, and it's a big market. Um, and then
we're,
those
we're
Etsy.
seeing we're seeing a lot of customers coming back that bought equipment and just it's a headache. They make more money placing an order and having it shipped to them than they're people. I don't think people account the time that they have to babysit these machines and the downtime that they might have. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of customers coming back that actually purchase machines now buying just transfers, saying I need to get rid of my equipment, help me sell it. Or it's sitting in the corner now. I got a boat anchor, $25,000 boat anchor, but they thought they
Yep.
were getting a good deal.
It's so easy. And again, someone like myself, I'll print for 275 a square foot. When I do a one-off print for a customer locally, I charge 850. So if I could charge 850 for that print and I've got 275 in the cost and I didn't have to buy a piece of equipment or do any of this, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you go that route? And
Frees
yeah,
up a lot of
again,
time for you,
it,
or frees up an employee to do something else like press.
but
That's I don't I pressing is I don't like pressing. Do you press a lot, Zach?
I mean, I don't really standard equipment anymore, so that's my key. uh, so I don't mind paying somebody to do it because the best thing about pressing a transfer J, it has the lowest learning curve, which means it's the cheapest labor out of every decoration process. I mean, screen printing, embroidery, it takes years to really get good at that. It's a trade skill.
Yeah.
DTF printing of a transfer is not a big skill, especially when somebody like yourself comes to my shop and trains my employees who are making 20 bucks an hour. I mean, I compensate them pretty well for not having industry experience, but 20 bucks an hour, all they have to do is babysit the machine. And then after we print transfers that we're going to print ourselves, we have a TV on in the shop and they're just heat pressing. I mean, to a lot of guys that are in their early 20s, hey, 20 bucks an hour, I can watch TV while heat pressing, no brainer. The
I,
big thing
I
I
have
would recommend, Jay, is pneumatic presses because now we're heat pressing so much more often. That's what I learned pretty quickly is, okay, we're done manual heat pressing. We're doing this so much more now. I want pneumatics that go much faster. You're seeing a lot more shuttle presses.
yeah.
A lot. I'm seeing quad presses, and at the Printing United show, I saw a 6-head press. It was
Yep.
nuts.
Yep.
And this is all being driven from DTF.
So
And
we go
good,
ahead.
Jay.
I
No,
was
no.
going to say, well, when it comes to these presses, there's one company we help out, and they have like 15 to 20 of them, and they're semi-auto, and the average shirt that they press per day is 900 shirts per day each press. Their top producer is somewhere around 12 or 1400 shirts. I mean, I couldn't imagine having to press that many shirts.
I
I
put
just
someone on
don't.
a piece rate to motivate them, essentially, at that point.
It's all they're doing is pressing shirts. They have a support crew that brings the blanks and brings the 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 transfers. But gosh, can you imagine? I couldn't imagine having to press
No,
900 shirts a day,
no.
and they're doing this every day. And they've got multiple presses. You're right. Those presses are unbelievable. They're money makers.
Yeah. And when it comes to the actual like getting customers to buy from your shop for their transfers versus someone else. So the competitive advantages, um, one is speed. Ninja transfers, they are far from the cheapest. But what are they good at? They're good at getting it out really quick. So that's their competitive advantage is speed. If you're not the fastest, you really are going to often compete when it comes to price. Maybe you're the cheapest. You're cheaper. You're just not as quick at getting the transfers out. Quality. I mean, hopefully everybody takes the time to put out a good quality product. Not always. And kind of those specialty transfers. I mean, JIC, outside of your normal DTF transfer, we see fluorescent transfers. We see
Metallic.
foil metallic transfers. I even saw a color changing DTF transfer
I
last
haven't
month
seen
at the
that yet.
Printing United, where
Really,
it's heat activated. One
I
step
did see
papers
that.
were selling. It was
Yeah.
really cool the way it worked. I don't
Yeah.
know how big of a market there is, but having those unique types of transfers is definitely powerful. And then service. I've had this week, I was hit up by a client, a customer, and they needed them next day, and it was already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Hey, well, we can do it. I mean, it wasn't that hard to fire up the printer a second time for the day because we'd already done our production, and take care of them. I mean, hey, if you're spending thousands of dollars a month sending me transfer orders, I'm gonna jump through some hoops once in a while to keep you happy.
Of course.
And how you get some of these clients? Well, social media. I mean, like you said, Facebook, very popular. Word of mouth. That's how I gain all of my business. Is I consult for shops. I gain their trust, and then I will supply them with some transfers. Industry networking events, attending trade shows. I mean, that's a great place. Again, you'll see shops that are looking at equipment, and then walk over there and be like, hey, you got your own DTF machine? No, we outsource it. What are you paying? Here's my card. And see if you can gain some business. You don't need everybody's business. I mean, the average person shop that outsources transfers is spending hundreds of dollars a week on them if they're pretty serious about it and they don't have their own equipment. So you don't need a ton. You need clients, not a bunch of customers. At least that's what I prefer. I don't like to work with the Etsy and Cricut moms, the hobbyist, as much. That's not my market. My market are the serious shops who just don't feel like buying their own stuff and just want to outsource the transfers. And I keep my network of clients happy.
If I had to recommend something, I'd say own your local market, Zach. Own it. Go to the local screen print shops, T-shirt shops, and fill their small orders. So.
Yep. And let them, like I said in my example this week, I'll print it today and you can come pick it up first thing in the morning. I mean, Ninja can't do that typically, or you're going to pay a lot more to get it overnight shipped, and you never know when UPS is going to lose it. I mean,
they can't do that, not even with 40 printers,
Yeah. When it comes to marketing as well, Jay, sample packs. You have to let customers get samples, and typically it's always free.
Good directions. We've fallen short on that a lot. Good directions. People want good directions, videos, that kind of stuff.
The application.
We lack.
Free shipping at a certain amount, very common. Most shops charge around $15 to ship transfers, but then at a certain amount it becomes free. Offer rush production at shipping, just like we talked about. You want to be able to get it to them very quickly. They are playing a middleman, so they need it often quickly because they're not doing the production themselves, or the bulk of it. They're just doing the application. And then, like you just said, Jay, the support and the instructions itself. Give them support videos, application instructions when you send them the transfers. Let them know, hey, you can hot peel this at this temperature on this material. You can cold peel it. I mean, I've hot and cold peeled a lot of DTF transfers. What we do in our shop is we hot peel onto poly at a very low temperature because poly just absorbs that ink very differently than cotton. To give ourselves peace of mind, we cold peel on cotton. It just is a little bit, I know that I'm not going to have any peeling issues ever, because if I'm going on the cheapest cotton shirt, it's been this way for any type of transfer over the years, or most printing methods. The nicer the product is, the better it prints. When you're going on the cheapest possible Gildan shirt, yeah, there's a good chance you can hot peel, but if you've got fine detail in the design, if you cold peel it, you're going to get a perfect transfer. So that's my 2 cents. Now, Jay, what I think most people actually want to hear about a little bit is how to sell DTF transfers through a DecoNetwork site. And again, like I mentioned earlier, there's 3 main ways. You can allow the customer to upload a small design that we then gang for them, or they can upload a ganged sheet, one that they have already ganged themselves in Photoshop, Canva, or wherever. And then third, you can actually let them use the design tool to upload all their different designs and gang it themselves, it'll save them a little bit of money. And if they don't have Photoshop. Um, so Jay, let's first check out your site that you sell transfers through. So color transfers. You've used this for several years to sell DTF transfers. I mean, you were my first client who was selling DTF transfers. And in addition to selling the typical heat, you even sell UV DTF sheets.
Right.
It's really not that hard to select a sheet size and upload an image of what you want it to be. And voila, I've placed a transfer order. I was looking at this earlier, Jay. Do you know that I placed 113 orders through your color transfer site? And
I do.
it was so, yeah, I bet you do. It was
I do.
So,
I miss that revenue.
it was so easy to just put together a gang sheet in Photoshop myself and then send it your way. You would print it, ship it next or the 2 days after. I'd get it, and we were rocking and rolling.
You know, Zach, Deco makes it so easy for us when a customer. I'm okay with the designer and the gang yourself, but when a customer just gangs it, uploads it, pays for it, Deco makes it so easy for us just to click that file and hit print. You know, it's just I mean, it's usually a couple clicks, and we're printing, and then going right over to, you know, ShipStation. You know, it's all integrated. It makes it great. We love it. I don't know
Jay,
how I would do anything else.
when you signed up for DecoNetwork, DTF was not in existence at the time.
No, it wasn't.
You know,
No, it wasn't.
So you signed up for DecoNetwork to sell custom apparel through a site. And
Correct.
now you have a site dedicated just to transfers. You have a site dedicated to selling supplies in your consulting services. Heck, Jay, you have a tinting business that is being hosted through DecoNetwork. And every time you launch one of these sites that brings you more revenue, Deco's not charging you more. You're still paying
No.
the same price that you paid day one when you thought you were signing up for the software just to sell custom printed T-shirts. So
Exactly. I
again,
can set up 100 of these sites, and it doesn't cost me any more than it normally does every month. You know, so shame on me for not having 100 sites up. You know, but
well, and
it
Jay,
is what it
look,
is.
this is the printer that you sold me. You're selling printers and ink and powder and everything else through DecoNetwork. I mean, it's
Every
amazing
day.
what all you can sell. You can upload an image, set a price, and you're even using custom fields here. Okay, how many rolls of film do you want to get started? You want Jay to come
I
and
did
set it
that
up for
myself
you?
too. I did that myself.
Yeah, and so how I do it on my site, very similar. Again, I give my customer different sheet sizes. I go a little bit smaller as well. I'll go down to a 12 by 11. Why? Because it's half of a 12 by 22. It's not any harder. So the customer can easily choose a sheet size in this case, and then they can upload their own file, or if they want to order a smaller sheet, they can select from one of our smaller sheets, and then we'll put together a big gang for them. So nesting it, for those aren't aware, gang is what we've always used for like a screen print transfer. Nesting is essentially what we call it for DTF. I don't know why we decided we needed a different name for it. And then again, Jay, they can actually use DecoNetwork's design tool. What I highly suggest, if you're going to put together, use the design tool to sell DTF transfers. Don't use a gigantic sheet. I mean, it can become a lot of work. The design tool wasn't built to design a 120-inch by 22-inch sheet. It's just not what it's meant to do. But as you can see, it's extremely easy for the customer to select a size and then start dropping artwork on here and place an order. All I got to do is choose the size, the quantity I need, add it to cart. Um, I've helped dozens of shops using DecoNetwork start a website for selling transfers. And the reason why you typically have your own standalone site for selling transfers outside of selling custom apparel, it's a very different market, Jay. I mean, when
Yeah.
you sell transfers, it's typically to somebody else in the industry, again, that Cricket Mom or somebody like that, versus custom shirts are ordered by businesses, schools, individuals. You have to have a heat press to apply this stuff. Now, UV DTF is probably going to change that a little bit because it's a sticker that anybody can put onto anything with pressure. And again, I don't want to talk too much about UV right now, but that is a game changer for the way promo products and other things are printed. The days of having to have a jig and a dedicated piece of equipment for printing something specific, now it's still always going to exist, but wow, UV is a game changer. Everybody I talk to absolutely loves UV DTF. Um, but Jay, just want to go back to sharing my screen or my beautiful face. I don't know if I've had my camera on the whole time. Colin, you should have texted me if I was.
It's been on.
But it's been on. Great. I had no idea. Um, so small prints, a sheet that they can do themselves, a roll, Jay. When you ship, you're either going to ship it in a roll tube or a box. This is just 4x4 by 24 inch. So 4x4 by 24. Sample packs. You have, again, ink, powder, film. The more that you purchase, just like most things, you get a better discount. And then something that you sell, Jay, that I like to use is this ink stir. I like that, Jay. You're like James Bond, shaken, not stirred, except the opposite. So
Yeah.
you do not. The ink needs to be agitated, at least the white ink, to get the pigment to be spread throughout and give you a nice print. When you shake ink, Jay, you're introducing a lot of air. That's going to create other problems. By using a machine like this, the ink slowly rotates and it's able to keep that ink well mixed up. That was a great purchase, something that you sell on your website, and I'm starting to see it even kind of built into some of the new equipment because M&R has one in the back of theirs. Very interesting. Definitely a lot of pros to it. But Jay, again, like if you buy a piece of equipment, you can start a DTF transfer business overnight because you're using the equipment to support yourself and whoever wants to pay you to just keep printing the transfers. My machine prints 100 square feet an hour. I make on average $265 a square foot. It's crazy money. And that's also why it's become an extremely saturated market overnight. I mean, there are so many shops that are offering DTF, and it's just very competitive. That's why I agree. The local market, that's where everybody should start.
Own it.
It's just
Own it.
it's just a great place. And yeah, just find your niche. But I wouldn't necessarily buy a printer just to sell transfers. I mean, you can, but know that it's very competitive. And there's just a lot of different people selling these. I mean, screen print transfer businesses, again, that's been my bread. I don't have a carousel screen print press. I have a flatbed press in which I sell plastisol transfers. I do a lot less of these since I bought the DTF machine. The only reason you see this printed, one, it's metallic. If it's more than one color, I don't screen print it anymore. I DTF it. But if I need some type of special effect, that's what I use this for. Same thing with like vinyl. Heat transfer vinyl has become primarily glitter metallic, the specialty types of effect that you just can't get necessarily easily with DTF, but who knows what's next. I mean, I bet glow in the dark, black light, reflective, you're going to start seeing those inks eventually, Jay. Um,
Yeah.
it again, infancy stages, um,
Evolving daily.
daily. Um, Now, Jay, we don't have any questions, which is a little surprising. Um, what are there any frequently asked questions that you hear?
Um, I on the no, I mean I can't think of anything right this second. I mean it's there's so much information out there. Um, People usually a lot of it there's good and bad, but um, no, I mean I don't. Trying to think, you kind of stumped me here.
Again, to recap it, Jay, somebody you should be looking at around spending 25 or less most of the time on a setup, typically having somebody like yourself install the equipment. If you're spending that kind of money and you're working with a reputable person like Jay, you should be printing transfers that day. Optimally, I mean that at least that's what it was in my experience, and immediately be making that money. Um, but again, highly suggest anybody out there who has a printer or is looking at a printer, check out DTF Xperts. I can't recommend Jay enough. Jay's just a great guy. Kind of putting you on the spot, Jay, but I've referred you several shops because they bought that machine from a dealer who was just a kind of a sleazy sales rep that talked him into something that they didn't tell him the whole truth.
Right.
So, okay, let's see if we have. They have. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? Yep. We can send the PowerPoint. We got a couple questions. What is the most common printer that you should look at? Well, do you know how many times I was asked when I told them I have my own DTF printer, and they're like, "Well, which one did you buy?" It's like every single dealer rebrands them to an effect. I don't think I've seen like the exact same printer behind me, Jay, in the exact same color scheme at a booth when I go to a trade show. I mean,
If
I'm
I
sure
if yeah
this is a Dingfly.
if,
That
if I had to answer that question, I'd say go with something that has popular boards in it, like Hoson, like you have. We can use the popular rips, CADLink, Flexi. Make sure you have I-3200 Epson heads. Kind of doesn't matter what kind of printer it is. Some are built a lot better than others, but if you have those key components, those are the best. You
Well,
know,
and like you just said, Jay, for those who don't know, almost every one of these printers has Epson I-3200 print heads. I mean, go
well,
to any of the booths, they pretty much are all using that same setup. Um, and Jay, let's just have some fun with it. So my machine, 4 print heads in it. So fired up. The more print heads, Jay, the faster the machine's going to go, right?
correct. The faster the machine goes, the more problems you're going to have.
Well, what I like though, you told me about my. I'm going to screw this all up and then have to recalibrate. I'll be calling you, Jay. Um, so 4 print heads. It goes fast. What I liked about it is if one of my print heads has a problem, goes down, I'm going to be able to keep printing with just fewer heads, right? I mean, it's not like it's dead.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
what I do every night or after we printed this morning, is we wet cap the machine. So we put distilled water or cleaning solution on the print heads to keep it nice and wet. I mean, it's Friday. We want to keep it, if my humidity goes down, I'm up north. It's getting cold at night. So we typically have a humidifier running when we are printing. But when the machine sits, I'm not trying to throw a bunch of vapor in the room. I am trying to just keep the heads wet. When it comes to your dryer shaker, you can see the exhaust. This panel looks a little complicated. It's really not. you have essentially, this is when the film comes off, it's getting dried to the touch-ish, not totally dry, but it's preventing the ink from kind of spilling out as it goes into the dryer. You've got your hopper for the powder. So just throw the powder in there. Then we have our positive inversion, which just rotates it. I can control the rotation speed if I want. You don't really ever do that. We have the shaker powder. So the film will come in, it'll get powdered, and then the shaker will shake off the excess powder. Obviously, we've got the belt. We can control if that goes auto or if it's a manual thing. What am I doing? I need to be in manual. Cool fans. So at the very end, we have the fans that can cool the print down. We have our take-up reel. So it's all an inline machine. The printer and the shaker dryer are not connected, but they're working in tandem. Really not that hard. There's really no maintenance here. The biggest challenge with the dryer shaker was the ventilation. Otherwise, it's, I mean, in general, Jay, to learn and get this set up and be making money with it compared to buying screen printing embroidery equipment, it's extremely simple. So, all right, one last thing. How would you get started to set up a website for online? Really, again, if you have a site, all you need to do is upload the different sizes of sheets. Very simple. You don't need a ton of different sheet sizes. I mean, Jay, you print for more than just me. Most of the time, they're ordering a 12 by 24, a 36, maybe a 48. And you don't need to complicate it more than that. You just need a handful of sheet sizes, let them select the right one, and however much they want to fill it up, that's what we charge. We don't change the price. It's just an all-inclusive in the price of the sheet. I have a Digital Heat FX 24H4. Don't know what that is. Let's see.
That's a Coldesi 24-inch printer.
Okay.
Wait,
will the white ink?
Yeah.
Will the white ink change the color of the artwork, Jay?
Yeah, of course it will. If you don't have enough, it's going to make colors look darker. If you have too much, it's going to make them look lighter and have a horrible hand. Yeah, it will. It changes the color. I mean,
and Jay, you recommend this too. Don't be changing your CMYK inks all the time either, because you can't flush. I mean, it's hard.
Well, when we set them up, we provide the profiles for those that are best suited for it. And when you start changing colors, inks like that, not all inks, even though it looks like the same, they're not all the same. There's different pigment loads, and you have to change profiles, and it can be a mess if you start changing stuff after the initial install.
And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of these consumables are coming from China. I mean, is that fair? I know like DuPont has started supplying
everything we sell comes from China.
It all comes from China. The biggest challenge with getting stuff from China, I mean, again, look at any other decoration process. Not really much is coming from China. I mean, you can buy a Chinese heat press made, but China is always worried about the price. They think that we want cheap, 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 cheap. I want something that has the least amount of headaches, because time is money. And if I'm pulling my hair out and battling something, that is not cheaper in the long run.
It costs you money. Our time is our most valuable commodity.
Absolutely, Jay. And they can be a little inconsistent at times when it comes to film. I've heard it from, I haven't really experienced this from anything you've supplied me, but I have heard from some of my clients, this film will hot peel, and then the next roll will not hot peel.
We experience it. We experience that.
There's a reason
you've just gotten lucky. You've maybe just gotten lucky.
Go on a Ninja's site. They tell you to cold peel. I'm sure you could probably hot peel some of it, but you you don't want to play with fire and say, hey, you can hot peel this,
It,
but
it's
then you get that roll. And again,
the,
this
the,
is what I'm
the
hoping I see evolve.
the suppliers just aren't consistent with what they're sending us. You know, you order one thing, they have something else sitting there. They'll send you that. You got to be careful. And that's why we try to keep a lot in stock in case we have issues, you know, and test it. We use it. I don't just start at the top of the pallet and put that film on my machine. I'll start at the top of the pallet, but then I'll take film off, go to the bottom of the pallet, the middle of the pallet. You know, you have to keep them in check. You have to test everything as you go. It's very hard when you're ordering pallets of stuff at a time too.
Oh,
Most
absolutely.
suppliers won't test it. So we're fortunate enough to have a good business selling transfers, so we use what we sell, and we're able to keep those problems to a minimum
And
when it
that's
comes to
why I like to suggest working with you, Jay. A lot of my clients that I help get started with DecoNetwork like working with me because I have my own shop. I can relate to them, and you know, you are doing a lot of testing. Very important because most suppliers and sales reps, it's all about making money and less
yeah.
about doing what's right. Right. How do you request the PowerPoint again? We'll make the PowerPoint available for anybody, Michael. All right, Jay. Well, I really appreciate you joining us. Hope that we can make a couple more on the act of DTFing and, you know, can I overcure the print? How do I get a better opacity or really there's a lot, again, things to get right. But once you have them right, you're not playing with these very often. I mean, once you calibrated the temperature, it was good from the go. But
Right.
as the printer got older, the bulbs were used more. I turned up the heat a little bit. These are
Yeah,
just the
1 or 2
little things
degrees.
to
Yeah,
keep in mind.
exactly.
So next time I'd like to talk with you more about just dialing in some of the variables as the seasons change. You know, we're getting the cold season, and then how you can get the most out of pressing that transfer on a press. What's the best strategy for hot or cold and so forth. Because again, somebody else still has to apply it, and just because it peels and it's on there, is it cured properly the whole time? So, um, yep. Well, Jay, again, thank you for joining. And again, highly suggest you guys check out DTF Xperts and Color Transfers. Jay Wilson, great guy. You'll see him at the trade shows. And thanks again, Jay.
Thank you, Zach.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.